Yeah. 7 o'clock, the meeting will come to order. I'm Grace Lesbrunce, Cascade Township Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley.
Here.
Trustee Nordhook.
Here.
Treasurer Pierce.
Here.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Trustee Kessel.
Here.
Clerk Slater. Here. Supervisor Lesbrunce.
Here. Please rise if possible for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the agenda. Is there discussion or a motion?
Motion made to approve the agenda. Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee Kessel, to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 4, presentations. I believe we have, you don't look like Ms. Ogilvy.
Diaz one, Ben?
Yeah.
So we do have a short presentation for you tonight, but just really quick to kind of introduce what's happening here. We had just received our MS4 permit, our stormwater permit. So that sounds familiar to some of you. Remember when we went through this process and the board essentially approved an ordinance that we submitted to the state of Michigan for them to approve. That is what we've been waiting for. It's actually been 6 years that we've been waiting for that. And it hasn't just been us. Wendy Ogilvy and her team at the Metro Council have been the ones sort of herding all of this effort together, all of the municipalities with the state of Michigan coordinating this huge effort to build this model ordinance for really all of the communities that have an MS4 permit. So we were certainly a part of that. So that is what we have been waiting for. What's important for you guys to remember, the ordinance that we submitted to the state is the one that we have to adopt. So we really don't have any opportunity to make any further changes to it. But because it's been so long, some of you weren't even on the board then, we wanted to sort of just back up, do this little Stormwater 101 intro. And then the next step will be the actual adoption of the ordinance. So there'll be an opportunity for public hearing as you normally would. The only requirement is that the state requires us to have it done by the end of the year. So we'll have to, come up with our schedule. I know you guys have a lot of things going on. And so we'll certainly work with Ben or however you guys want to schedule that, but we just have to have it done by the end of the year. So with that, I'm gonna let Wendy from Metro Council kind of walk you through the stormwater presentation.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me. I'm Wendy Ogilvy. I'm Director of Environmental Programs at the Grand Valley Metro Council. We also house the Lower Grand River Organization of Watersheds, or LGRO, if you've heard of that, kind of the watershed council for the Lower Grand. Kara Decker is our Stormwater Coordinator. So she normally would be here in front of you, but she is on maternity leave. So I am going to present this to you. I just wanted to run through, this is kind of a really basic explanation of stormwater and why we need to do this. So it's kind of, I'm sure you are all more familiar with stormwater than some of our other communities that we interact with. So it's a little basic, but it'll get to the point. So if you want to take the next slide. So one of the first things that we talk about is, where does stormwater come from and where does it go? So, just all the rainwater, the snow melt, all of that runs, to the storm drain, to the catch basin system. And a lot of people think that goes to a water treatment facility, but it doesn't. It goes directly to our rivers, lakes, and streams. And so that's kind of one of the first lessons of, protecting stormwater, making sure that, it's as clean as it can be. And that's really the purpose of the regulation, is to make sure that we are reducing the pollutants of the stormwater that's entering our rivers, lakes, and streams. So go ahead, the next one. So why is that a problem? When the runoff, when it hits hard surfaces, driveways, rooftops, impervious pavement, it catches all of that material, trash, oil, grease, pet waste, anything that's on the surface, and can just flush that into the storm sewer system. And so that goes into our rivers, lakes, and streams, obviously is detrimental to aquatic life and just the health of our streams. And so we really try to deal with the water quality, which is the pollutants in there, but also water quantity. And so as communities develop, they get more and more impervious surfaces. There's less area for that water to sink into the ground. And so that's more water actually going into the storm sewer system, which are natural channels. The natural stream banks aren't designed, or they haven't formed that way to carry that extra volume of stormwater. And so this permit is really addressing the water quality and the water quantity. Go ahead. So kind of backing up, the regulations really came through way back in '72 when the Clean Water Act was enacted. If you remember, rivers on fire and things like that. So the NPDES, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, was formed. And they were really looking at point sources, those factory discharges that were really polluting a lot of our waters. Once those regulations became in place, they were realizing that some of these other pollutants were coming from some of the more developed communities. And so they decided in about 1990, the municipal storm sewer system permits came into play. And that the first, what they called the phase 1 permits, were for large communities, Detroit, Lansing at that point, communities that were over 100,000 people, and some universities like U of M, they were called the phase 1 communities. So they've been doing these permits since 1990. And around 2000, they included phase 2 communities, which were any communities in and around a metro area of greater than 50,000 people. And that's when all the communities around Grand Rapids became part of this program. And so Cascade Township is considered a phase 2 community, and so following those rules. EPA, the regulations come from a federal requirement through the NPDES, through EPA. In most states, communities in most other states have to deal directly with EPA, but EPA gave the state of Michigan, what is now EGLE, the Department of Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy, they gave them the authority to administer this program. And so all of our communities deal directly with EGLE as opposed to EPA. So go ahead, next slide. The permit itself is made up of 6 minimum measures. So these are public education and outreach. So we all have, as Steve was saying, this is a coalition of all the local governments that have to have these permits. And so the state has allowed us to do it basically on a watershed basis. And so we have one public education plan that all the communities, so there's 23 communities within the Lower Grand that have to have these permits. So all the communities get together, but they have one public education plan. So we're all, operating under the same public education plan, and the permit kind of outlines 11 messages that have to be conveyed through this plan. And so we have a public education, actually a public engagement committee, which we have representatives from all of these communities serve on that committee. And they're the ones, so EGLE doesn't describe or prescribe how you do it. They just say, this is what you have to do. And so the committee, through our public education plan, outlines the actions, the delivery mechanisms, the evaluation of how we're going to get these messages across. And so we just updated that plan. It was approved by EGLE in July of 2020. And so we do have an updated plan, and that is now part of your permit. The public participation and involvement is really you giving the public an opportunity to weigh in on these regulations. And that's when, when we got the draft notice, you had to have a public notice put up on and I think you put it up on the township, maybe the library bulletin board or whatever, just saying, letting the community know that the draft permit is out and comments were being accepted. No comments were received, but that's just giving the public an opportunity to comment on this. The third one is illicit discharge detection and elimination. So your storm sewer system, the only thing that should be going into your system is stormwater. And so one of the things we have to do is go to all of your outfalls, anywhere your storm sewer system discharges to a body of water, and test for that and make sure that only stormwater is coming out of that pipe. So we have to do it once every 5 years. So again, this coalition of governments, we get together. We usually hire a couple interns to do this work for all the communities. I think the last time we did it was in 2018. So it's probably 2023 that we need to do it again. But it's basically going to all the outfalls during dry weather and making sure that nothing else is coming out of that pipe. If something is coming out, we have a whole protocol of how to test it and when to revisit it, and then tracing it upstream to see if there's an illicit connection. And sometimes we find car washes or things like that that might be connected to the storm sewer system. And then you have an illicit discharge and elimination ordinance that gives you the authority to make sure that whoever has that illicit discharge disconnects it and puts that into probably the sanitary system. So the fourth thing is construction site runoff control, and that is basically making sure that your soil erosion and sedimentation control measures are in place and that you work with, and I think the county, the road commission is the one that operates your soil erosion control. I think that's correct, isn't it? Yeah, the road commission. So just making sure that you're communicating with them and you have controls on construction site runoff. The fifth thing is post-construction, and that's really what we're here talking about today. So after a development is completed, how is stormwater managed on that site? So how are the stormwater control measures designed, and are they meeting the permit? So again, the permit deals with water quality and water quantity. So how are these developments dealing with that stormwater after the fact? And that's what your ordinance is all about. It's describing how the communities and how the developments are going to control that stormwater. And then the sixth thing is pollution prevention, good housekeeping. So that's looking at your township owned facilities. So the library, the township hall, the firehouses, how are your facilities managing stormwater on your site and making sure that you're practicing good housekeeping measures to make sure nothing is going into the storm sewer system. So the 6 minimum measures, and that's all outlined in the permit. As I said, the main, you have a permit right now and you have an ordinance right now, but the new permit that was just renewed is more stringent than the old one. And the main components in the water quality is that you have to contain that first flush, which is really where they think, as I was saying, that stormwater comes, washes things off of the surfaces. So that first flush of stormwater is really going to be the most polluted. It's carrying the oil, the grease, maybe the trash into there. So in all of your designs, you'll have to capture and retain that first flush or treat it. The water quality or water quantity protection is what we're talking about with the rivers, lakes, and streams. So as I said, as more development happens and more water is going into these systems, the streams aren't naturally designed to carry that. And so this is the new part of the permit. Before it was just controlling the rate. So you had to maybe contain the 2-year 24-hour storm, but then you could release it like in a detention basin, and then you could release all of that volume. But they're finding now that that's just too much volume. And so the ordinance prescribes how you have to capture and retain that 2-year 24-hour storm. And that's done through, if you want to go to the next slide, green infrastructure. And your pipes and all of this storm sewer system is really considered the gray infrastructure. But when you allow stormwater to infiltrate into the ground using these green infrastructure techniques, that's what allows the water quality provisions to be met and the water quantity, because you're actually infiltrating that volume of water that won't go into the streams. And so there's a lot of different ways we can do that. And again, Eagle doesn't prescribe how you do it. They just say what you have to meet. And so it's up to you and your engineers and the developers to figure out how this development using green infrastructure practices will meet the permit requirements. So as you can see, it's rain gardens, bioswales, bioretention, permeable pavement, green roofs even, so all sorts of different types of green infrastructure. Go ahead, next slide. As I said, the benefits, really the overall goals are to infiltrate as much water as possible and reduce impervious surfaces. So even things like permeable pavement that allows the water to soak in. And then there's storage volume underneath, which might allow that volume to be held and then again infiltrated into the ground. So there's lots of benefits to green infrastructure. And I know you've got a lot of practices around the township, not only for aesthetics, but just for habitat and just a lot of other benefits. Next. So just so you didn't think that you're out here alone having to do these requirements, these are all the communities, and the green are all the communities that are required to have these permits. And you can see it's the greater sort of Grand Rapids area, but then there's also an urbanized area out by the lakeshore, which brings in Grand Haven, Ferrysburg, Spring Lake, and even Fruitport Township in Muskegon County. And so these are all the communities in the lower Grand that have the model ordinance. But the model ordinance is also being used in the Macatawa area, so Zeeland, Holland, in the rest of Ottawa County, and also in Muskegon. So it's really all of West Michigan, and we've banded together using Fishback and some of our other consultants to make sure that these rules are really consistent throughout West Michigan. So, what we didn't want, what nobody wants is a developer to think, oh, this community doesn't have the strict standards, let's just go develop there. So just really making it a level playing field for everyone in the area. And that's all I had. So there's, high level of why we're here to do the ordinance. And I guess if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yes.
Wendy, I just had a question about the fertilizers and the sale of fertilizer, especially phosphates. As you've probably seen in all of the bodies of water in Michigan, lakes and our rivers, we've had a lot of weed problems, especially with invasive species. The Eurasian milfoil has taken over the last decade. And, people buy fertilizers, and a lot of them have phosphates in them. And I believe that Ottawa and Muskegon County banned fertilizers with phosphate content, but not in Kent County. Do you know if that's true? And is the Metro Council working with Kent County to try to regulate?
It's actually a statewide regulation now.
Okay.
But you can still use phosphorus if you test the soil and you can prove that it needs it. Because if you're establishing a lawn, it probably needs phosphorus. And so there's certain requirements, and so they do still sell it.
Okay.
And so, it's more of an education campaign. It's not really enforceable. It's very difficult to enforce. Just, seeing what people buy in the stores.
A lot of products now, they'll have the second number, I think, is the phosphorus number, and they'll be zero, and it'll say river and lake safe.
Right. So it is harder to find, but it's a very difficult thing to enforce. But that's where a lot of education, and especially working with maybe lake associations and communities like that to do that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
How does the enforcement play out at the county? Is the county versus the township responsibilities if we've got a problem or a situation where it seems like we're not? It
depends what the problem is, I guess. I mean, it's a good thing we have a drain commissioner here tonight.
Let's say lots of silt.
So if it's a development that is not meeting, if it's under construction maybe, and it's not in compliance with the soil erosion control, then then you defer that to the road commission, because they're the ones that need to enforce those rules. If they built the development and it's not according to how they said they would build it or according to the designs, then that would probably be up to the township, because you're reviewing those designs. And so, looking at the as-built, are they building it correctly? And then this ordinance gives you the authority to say, you need to go fix this because you didn't build it as it was designed.
And if there is a problem, but they did build it as designed, like say we relaxed in what we required of them, what would the next step be?
Well, I mean, the ordinance is pretty descriptive of what you have to do. So I guess, if there's a problem with how it's built, but it's meeting all the designs, then maybe the regulations need to change. But we have what's called our Elgro design spreadsheet. So when developers come in, you can put all the parameters of this development into this design spreadsheet. So it doesn't tell you how to design it, but it tells them the way they've designed it, will it meet the permit requirements? And so it's just a sort of an extra check for your engineers and your developers to make sure that they are meeting these strict standards. So, I mean, you know, if there's still issues, you know, this ordinance does give you the teeth to make sure that they are following every rule in there.
Can we as a township go a little bit stricter than what's required at this?
You could, but you can't go less restricted. So maybe you want to chime in here.
Well, what's probably important to remember about this new ordinance is I think the new stormwater regulations will actually be a little bit more stringent than the current ones that we have. So there are a few more provisions in there that we'll have now that we don't.
Right, because you didn't used to have like that first flush requirement. It used to be a ½ inch. Now it's that first inch of stormwater. And so, you know, things have to be designed a little bit larger to capture all of that first flush, and then the volume. It's not just, you can't release all that volume at a certain rate. You have to infiltrate and reduce the actual volume of it. Yep.
How does this affect existing systems or existing problems that might be out there?
It's not required. You're not required to retrofit anything that's out there. But if there's a redevelopment, or, and it has to be, I think, a 50% increase in the impervious surface, if the area is redeveloping, then it would have to fall under the new standards. But there's no requirement from the state level or the federal level to go retrofit a site. Yeah, Ben.
So it looked on the previous map that there's definitely some suburbanized townships that are included in the permit area. Can you talk a little bit about why Cascade is required to have a permit, but maybe a place like Ada Township or Gaines Township isn't?
I'll try not to make this too long of a story. When EPA first administered the rules, they didn't understand Michigan townships and how Michigan is a little bit different in the way their governments work. And because a lot of townships don't own or operate their storm sewer systems here. You know, it's the road commission or the drain commissioner. And so when the permits first came into phase 2, there were 64 communities that were in this program. But then a lot of the communities like Gaines Township said, well, we don't own or operate and have no authority over our storm sewer system. So how would we even enforce this? And so then they kind of reviewed everything. And if townships could prove that they don't own or operate systems, or they don't own complexes large enough, and it was like 1 or 2 buildings. I mean, the Eagle had certain requirements, but if they could show that they didn't meet that criteria, then they were out of the permit. Ada Township's always been kind of an issue. I'm not sure really how they got out of it, but in a couple of years, there's going to be a new permit reissuance. And if Eagle increases their staff and they have more capacity, then some of these other communities that are growing and are larger would probably fall into the new permits.
Is the airport subject to these the same?
They're not, they're under the industrial NPDES permit. So this is specific to municipalities that own a separate storm sewer system.
What if Cascade says, no, we don't want to be part of this. We want to be like Ada?
Then you would get a violation notice and be subject to a $25,000 fine per day.
And who levies that, and who makes a decision whether or not we can opt out of it like Ada?
That would be Eagle. And there were a lot of, and do you remember when all that happened?
I remember we asked a lot of those same questions, and my recollection was we were told that because we do have a storm sewer system on our own properties, that was why we were.
And that you had multiple properties.
And we had multiple properties. And as Wendy talked about the outfalls that we're talking about, I think it seems like it's under 10.
It's not very many, right? Whereas the city of Grand Rapids has, 1,500.
You mentioned in your presentation testing during dry weather and whatnot. Who pays for the testing? Is that the county or the township?
Right now, the township pays Metro Council a fee to administer, to facilitate the permit. And so that's included in your fee for us to hire the interns, do all that work. So that's just included in your annual fee that you pay.
Obviously, you see where I'm coming from in my mindset.
You don't want to pay for it.
Well, I don't like Big Brother telling us what to do, as long as we're doing what's appropriate. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So what's the time frame? We have to,
So we,
Before the end of the year, we have
Right.
to have the new ordinance adopted. So we've got a little bit of time to do the public noticing and go through that process. But before the end of the year, we have to have, and obviously the end of the year is always a tough time if we start having hearings just because of the holidays. So it's a few months that we have to have the ordinance adopted.
and the trustees have, there's really no wiggle room. It is what it is, and we have to vote yes. We have to pass it.
you have to pass it. There's a few things in there, like what amount of a fee you want to charge if there's a civil infraction or something like that. I mean, there's a couple things of that nature, but basically design standards, anything else is not negotiable at this time, because we've worked for the past 6 years with all the communities. We have what we call our Stormwater Ordinance Committee, which we have people, and Steve's been involved in that, to work through all of these issues to get Eagle, because we did not, when they first issued the permit, it was not doable. I mean, they said no discharge, zero, can't do anything. And so we've been working with them. It took about 4 years to develop an alternative approach that they would finally agree to, that the ordinance is really built around, so that you are allowed to have some sort of discharge.
Is now the time when we pass that, if the township decides they may want to go more stringent on development on requirements, is that the time to do that? Or anytime really?
What you can do, I mean, you can pass the ordinance, and the ordinance references the stormwater design standards and a stormwater management plan. And we did it that way so that the stormwater standards and the stormwater management plan can change, and you don't have to go through a whole nother adoption. So once you adopt the ordinance, you reference these other documents. So you can change those other documents without having to re-adopt the ordinance. So you might want to get this through now and then work on any changes that need to be changed.
Yeah, maybe what would be helpful is to have the engineer here to kind of go through the ordinance that I know some of you haven't seen, sort of go through all of those details. And then, you could have those conversations about something like that.
And maybe the planning commission had any involvement in this process at all, or informing?
So it's not a zoning ordinance. So I guess that would be up to you guys if you wanted to, defer to them or involve them. But this isn't a zoning ordinance, so it doesn't require them.
No question.
Well, over the past 5-6 years, we've had several residents complaining and squawking and pointing at all the settlement from developments running into the river. Dump truckloads of settlement, or some of our bayous are filled in. We can't get anybody to even look at it. Nobody's done anything. Those bayous are still full. So
Where's the sediment coming from?
developments, and I think the airport has some skin in the game.
Well, quite honestly, we have looked at a few of the bayous. The one in particular I can think of on Thornapple River Drive during the drawdown, we've had that, and quite frankly, that may even go back to your time at Fishbeck, where we actually did some analysis of some of that, and have found that it is settlement from the river itself.
What about Round Hill, where you kept having all these residents coming and complaining about the massive amounts of silt and buildup that are coming from that development that's right above the river, and then all the ordinance violations that came, that the neighbors were yelling at the town, trying to get the township's attention about? How would that situation apply, if at all, to this ordinance? Would it that be to the township to enforce what we've already passed?
I guess, was it during construction or after construction?
Yes.
I think there's two things there. There's the soil erosion issues that Wendy's talked about, that the county is responsible to enforce those. In terms of the townships, I suppose what would be different, the standards for maybe what they would have had to build for their storm sewer system might be different tomorrow than they were before.
So then what, from a township, the appropriate step would be for the township to look at what that developer, what was approved for that developer to do and make sure that it complies with what the township allowed. So that's as much as our role would be in that instance.
Right, and the county would take care of the sort of the construction erosion control activity.
You mentioned, oh, go ahead.
We're just going to have it a
I'm
lot.
done.
We have a lot of.
You mentioned
bills.
fines and enforcement. Who's responsible for leveling the fines and also collecting fines? Is that down to the township, or is that something Metro Council does?
No, that would be the township.
Okay, so if something occurs, is there any support to the township from Metro Council or the county? Or are we hung out here to drive ourselves by ourselves?
We could help in any way we could, but we can't, we don't have the authority to do anything, but we can help with science or investigation or, I mean, that's our role, is to help, to help you make sure that you're in compliance with your permit is our main role, to make sure that, you don't get a violation notice from the state. But we're not going to get involved in probably your legal matters. But
do you get involved at all with the developer themselves, or are we the middle person?
We do not. What we do with our design spreadsheet, we help engineers understand how they need to design this, but we don't normally, I mean, that's the community's responsibility for the developer. But we're trying to do education. That's a big role of ours, is just education and trying to get people understanding green infrastructure and understanding, how it impacts our water courses.
And that was the big point behind having it done on a coordinated effort. So this wasn't just a one community doing it this way, one community doing that way. So to get it all, so everybody was doing it the same.
So if we're going to pass this, it doesn't matter. It's just, but where would it, this ordinance really well? Where would we most be likely to show our teeth as far as our ability to enforce the, not even enforce, to make sure that we make the most of preventing stormwater? Is that in how we establish our fees, the amount of fees, or?
It's making sure that they're designed correctly, first of all, and then using the tools that we've created to make sure that what they've designed is meeting, the requirements. And then also what's kind of new is making sure that all the developments have a maintenance plan, and that's recorded with the deed, and also inspections. And that is the responsibility of the township to do inspections. But that's up to you how you want to do that, and that'll be described in your maintenance plans with the developments.
And how we charge for those? So we could put that on the developer and then have a third party do those, and we get the reports, but our hands are out of it. They incur the costs.
Could do that.
We'll have an opportunity to look at all of that ordinance, that manual, when we have the engineer. So again, that might be a good time to kind of walk through all of that stuff.
It's surprising. I didn't know, I didn't know it was such an issue. And now being on this side of it, it keeps coming up over and over again. And that's why you keep seeing the hills, the issues, and it's only going to be bigger as there's fewer spots to develop, and the spots that are left are on hills or in less ideal locations. So,
and that's like with the city of Grand Rapids, huge, how developed they are. Almost every site they have now, there's no space to do redevelopment, to do the green infrastructure. So people are getting very creative. Developers getting very creative. So can you go back to the last, or just hit the last slide, and that link at the bottom of the slide? Can you click on that? If it works. So if you want all of the information, all of your documents are on our website. So the website's up there, elgrow.org/ms4cct. And so your permit is right there. All of the documents that are included in your stormwater management plan, the public ed, the illicit discharge. So we keep everything there. So if you ever need to look for anything, it's all kept on our website. And then all of your progress reports since a long time ago are on there. 2012.
Do we have this on our website then, or a link to it?
You have a link to it.
So
Just to point out something that you mentioned too, just like we were talking about, all of the easy to develop sites are done, so they're more complicated, which means we'll start to see a lot more redevelopment in the township as well. And the nice thing about the regulations is that if there's a significant amount of redevelopment, we can get compliance with sites that were previously not compliant. So
correct.
It helps
To
us
these stricter standards.
Yeah.
Right.
thank you for taking the time and being so thorough. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Steve, will you turn us back to? Thank you.
Article 5, public comments. Anyone wishing to speak, please approach the podium and please state your name and address. And after that, we can see if anyone wants to speak virtually. Mr. Whitley, welcome.
Yeah, Chuck Whitley, 5030 Sequoia Drive. I just want to talk on something else, but I was listening to this, excuse me, and what I heard was that the sediment in the bayous comes naturally from the river and not from the inflows. And to me, sediment doesn't run uphill into bayous. So I'm not sure what was trying to be said there, but it certainly, to me, sounded like sediment was running uphill into streams and other inflows. And I'm not that kind of engineer, but I do understand the gravity of the situation. Okay, I'm here just to hearten that the SAD process is rejoining its path to implementation. Looking forward to that. I am, however, concerned a little bit on just the general release of information and how, everything is in the packet. You got 487 pages or whatever it is this time. And it's all a picture of pages, includes the staple holes and everything else in the scans. And for our, side here, we would just greatly appreciate if we could have access to, the actual data as far as the list of people that are, within the district, what their parcel numbers are, addresses, whatever. And while we have a picture of it, we would certainly be much more convenient for us to have the actual data. And I'm not sure, legally you're fine with, saying that here's a picture of everything. But for us to have it be, more usable, it certainly would help us if we had access, to you releasing the actual data associated.
So that you don't have to manually enter it in?
Yeah, so that we don't have to look at a picture of something and try to sort through it. If we had the actual data, we'd be able to do that.
Go ahead, Mr. Sweezy.
The SAD roll is in the packet. It's the last couple of pages of the packet.
Yeah, there is a picture of the SAD roll in there. Yes, I 100% agree with you. Okay. It is not the.
I just don't feel comfortable from the township's perspective, regardless of what the right answer is, giving it to, because it's such a hot topic with people politicking on both sides.
Yeah.
So my initial thought is no, because it's just going to be used to push and persuade those on the roll. And that's not something we get involved in, I don't think.
Okay. So
nothing personal.
Everyone can
I don't
do
care what
that.
side you're on.
It's just hard for them to do it because we have a picture of all the.
It places people in it puts different sides in unfair positions. And I don't think we need to get involved in that. We're already being asked to do our share, but I don't want to volunteer that, I guess. Maybe down the road, you'll show me otherwise, but I just don't think, especially on such a hot topic that's so contentious.
Right. And the main point I'm trying to have is that the access to public information currently is limited to a picture of that public information and not the information. And I think that's something that on any topic probably should be considered.
I see what you're saying from your perspective, but from at least my perspective on the board, I don't think that's necessary. I think having the printed copy
all of you can do with it what you like, but we're not going to get involved in making certain arguments easier for, it's not our role. So I just disagree on this issue, but thank you for your comment.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Would anyone else like to say anything about that? Do we have anyone virtually wishing to speak?
Thank you, Supervisor Lesperance. I don't see any right now, but you know how I like to wait and let everybody get a chance to raise their hand if they have a public comment that they'd like to make. If you're on the Zoom, and if you are on the phone, press *9. I'm gonna wait a few minutes. Doesn't look like there are any public comments right now from our Zoom participants.
So that will conclude this portion of public comment. Article 6, approval of the consent agenda. Is there a discussion or a motion?
Motion to approve, support.
It's a motion by Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee Shipley to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 7, we have no financial actions this evening. Article 8, unfinished business. We have none tonight. Moving on to Article 9, new business. Item 75, 2021, petition for maintenance, improvement, and consolidation of drains pursuant to chapters 8 and 19 of the Michigan Drain Code of 1956 as amended. I believe we have Drain Commissioner Yonker here tonight.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Welcome.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be before you guys again. It's been a long time. The last time I was here, I was currently serving as your state representative, and it's been a long time. So it's always good to come back. So we have the Hidden Hills development that was built quite a few years ago. I was a young kid at that time. And we have a drain that comes through there, and it's broke up right down through it. All that area drains into that one focused area. And there's a Hidden Hills drain, the Apple Hills drain, and the Apple Hills East. One stream, 3 different drains, names, and then every phase of that development is a separate district. Each district has detention ponds in it, all right? All that flows into the main drain out and onto the river. We're responsible to maintain those. And the problem we come into with this one is it's very confusing because there's so many little moving parcels in there. And if we could combine it as one system, it's good for the public, for the people that live there, because these detention ponds, these outfalls of these detention ponds, and the maintenance and the testing, as you heard, that we have to do on these, it gets quite costly. Anytime you have to dig up pipe, and we have some right now in that section. And so it gets very costly for the homeowners as a single district. And they're all using the same outfall. It's all going to the same source to be moved down to the river. So we would like to, and we're going through the county, we got several areas like this. We'd like to combine those into one district, one unit. And then when we do work on it, number one, it keeps the cost down for everybody. And everybody now is participating as a unit to maintain the main outsource of water that we have to maintain to carry the water away. So it's good for us in the sense that makes our paperwork much less in our office. It's more efficient for us, but it's good for the property owner as well. And when we look at these, we look at both sides. Is it a win-win for everybody? This one is definitely a win-win. So for us to move and combine these, I need to have a petition from the government unit, which is you guys, because you're predominantly, it's all in your township. And with that signed petition, then my next step is I set up a board of determination. And Steve has sat on some of those for me from other areas of the county. And that's a panel of 3 people outside of this area that will hear our reason for wanting to combine this. And all the people in that district will be notified of that meeting, and they can come. If they don't want that to happen, they can present their argument at that time. That independent board will then make a final determination at the end of that meeting. Is it necessary or not? And then I act on what their rule is. So that still has to be done. But for me to move to that point, I need a petition from this government body to start moving that direction. And that's what I'm here for that petition to be signed. And I think you have a copy of that. You should have all seen that. So that's before you.
Thank you.
All right. If I could kind of go to a follow up with what Wendy was talking about, a couple things, and she's checking on it, but so we should follow through with her. Any plat, any development that is under the legal organization of a plat goes through my office. We do the final approval of that engineering and those standards, all right? We do final inspection. Before any building permits are allowed to be issued, I have to sign off on it. If I don't sign off on it, they can't build. That's the leverage to make sure things are done right. All right. So if it's done as a condo, then it's all you. They are a legal entity. They can assess their condominium association to do any maintenance. So the county is totally out of it. Road commission is out of it. The drain office is out of it. So there's a difference on your permit where it works under your permit. It's going to be if they're filing to put in a condo. And a lot of developers like to go that way because there's less scrutiny.
What about PUDs? How do you define the two, or what's the?
I can't talk intelligently to that one.
That's what we keep hearing, PUDs.
Yeah, that's more on a land use though, I think is where that plays. And then again, if it's on the PUD is a big commercial, that's going to fall under you guys because it's a legalized entity as what we call a plat is what the county administers and oversees. So yeah, PUD would be like the commercial property that has a big site and has their own pond. It's your engineers that have to approve that. It has to go through your engineering department. So you want to make sure your engineers are holding them accountable. My biggest issue I run into with condos, and if we get a lot of them, the condos are not put in properly. The drainage isn't working. The backing up, it's flooding units. I get calls every year on that throughout this county. And I can't do a thing about it. And the cost to fix them is huge.
And condos are really profitable for developers.
Bingo. If I had my way, I would go to the state and say, no more condos. Because the people, the consumer are the ones that get really taken over raked over the coals on that. They're buying these expensive condos. They're paying a lot of money and they're having water problems that I can't fix. And a lot of them you can't fix because they were not engineered properly and they were not inspected as the work was going in properly.
And that falls squarely on the township.
It falls on the township.
That's what we're seeing a lot here.
Yeah. So beware when you work with condo association requests for organization, make sure your engineering firm that you're working with is doing their due diligence. Because when I have them and they don't, and we have one right now, the engineering firm didn't do well. It was more of a complicated setup and we're going after them. They're going to make it right. The people paid good money. So I have the drain office does have a little more authority that way, but we try to keep it from even getting started. I don't even let a building permit get issued until we can verify.
Except for condos, right?
Yeah. I get calls on those later and they're a nightmare. And then I can't do anything. And then the people accuse me of skirting my responsibility because they don't understand. So then I'm the bad guy on that. Either way, I'm a bad guy with those.
Us too.
Yeah.
What about in a plat? The plain English definition of a plat is?
It's just how it's organized because a plat is all public. A condo is private. So the condo is a legal entity. They have a board, they have bylaws, they have the whole gamut that they can assess the people in that organization for all the maintenance. And a plat, the county road commission, it's their standard for the road. They maintain it. The drains are all under my office. We maintain it. And then we assess the people. We have the authority to assess. The road commission works from a budget. We don't have a budget. Drain code establishes how we pay for the work that's done. And we live in a great county that offers the financial backing to do these projects and pay later. That's a big benefit. I'm very blessed as a drain commissioner in Kent County because of that. So be thankful where you live. We got a great county here compared to the rest of the state. So anyway, so that's what I'm here for, is for that petition, so we can move on and bring this community as one drain district.
Thank you so much. Manager Swayze, do we have residential PUDs?
We do have residential PUDs. In fact, the majority of our PUDs would be residential.
Can you explain how condos and PUDs, I guess the dumbed down definition, PUDs, I guess.
Yeah. So a PUD specifically is when
and that's planned unit development, right?
Development. So when an organization is asking for something that is not specifically spelled out in the zoning ordinance, but they still want to comply with what I would call the spirit of the zoning ordinance. So, a common example would be in an area where we require lots to be, and I'm just using round numbers here, these aren't our actual numbers. Say we required the lots to be 2 acres, and they decided that for whatever reason, from their development perspective, 1 acre sites make the most sense for them. But they make sure that they still have the same amount of open space that would be available to that development by dedicating a portion of the development that can't be built on. So say you had 20 acres, so you'd be able to have, 10 2-acre lots. So then they would have 10 1-acre lots, and they would have 10 acres of open space. So that's typically how why we use PUDs. Now a condo doesn't, and I also cannot speak right now intelligently on the difference between, because there's condos and then there's, I'm totally blanking. I want to say suburb, but that's not it. Subdivision. So there's condos, and then there's subdivisions, and there's plats, and there's different rules and different processes for all 3 of those.
Makes sense. Thank you.
With that, I like to make a motion to approve the resolution for petition for maintenance. Commissioner Yonker came to the infrastructure committee. He did a great presentation for us on this particular one with Hidden Hills, et cetera, and combining those. And it just seemed to be a benefit for everybody all the way around. And it just made a lot of sense.
To jump on Tom's coattails, I couldn't agree more. It only made sense to combine these, and the commissioner explained why they were separate individually, and it made good sense.
Is that a second?
Yes, that's a second.
Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yes.
Clerk Slater. Yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you, Commissioner Yonker.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Item 076, 2021, resolution to recognize the Michigan Sports Academy Foundation as a nonprofit organization. Do we have anyone here?
I can speak on that. Yep. So in order for nonprofit organizations to obtain their charitable gaming licenses from the state of Michigan, they're required to obtain a certification from the local unit of government that recognizes them as a nonprofit organization. We receive these from time to time, and we've received such a request from the Michigan Sports Academies Foundation. So in your packet, I included the request from them, the proposed resolution, as well as a copy of their 501c3 tax exemption status letter from the IRS, which honestly is the only thing that we typically look at to determine whether or not they're going to be a nonprofit or not. This is really just a housekeeping item for us. There's no financial impact on the Cascade Township budget by passing the resolution. So staff is recommending that the Township Board approve the resolution to recognize the MSAF as a nonprofit organization.
Good question. This is for them to apply for a gambling permit.
Yeah.
Would that be an ongoing? That's not a one-time permit, is it?
So I'm not exactly, so our recognition is a one-time. So they only need to be recognized one time. I do think for each activity, they have to apply for a separate permit, but then never have to come back to the township again.
What I found interesting in the documentation was that they seem to have two addresses to respond to. They got one downtown on Monroe Avenue. They got one out here in Cascade Road. I'm going,
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
yeah, what's what? I mean, why aren't they applying to the city of Grand Rapids instead of out here where maybe they figure it's a shoe-in that they can get it?
Is it where the event is being held?
I believe it's where the event is being held. And the two different addresses are the organization's address versus the address of the events coordinator, who appears to be a local resident.
And you put into that, Ben? You comfortable with that?
I am comfortable with it, yes. I mean, really, again, the only thing that we can look at to identify that as a nonprofit, you know, so we don't approve, we're not approving the permit. We're not telling the state that we recommend they approve the permit.
Sure.
All we're saying is that, yep, we've recognized that they're a nonprofit organization.
And then the state makes their determination. Yep, we've done that before. Okay,
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Nordhook,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
treasurer Pierce,
Yes.
trustee Kessel,
Yes,
trustee Shipley,
Yes.
clerk Slater, yes, supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried. (077-2021) resolution for special license permit for Cascade Heritage Day.
Thank you. So the township will be holding a festival, the Heritage Day event on September 25th. And as part of that event, we will be having a beer tent. And so in order for us to serve beer at the event, the township needs to obtain the special license permit from the Liquor Control Commission. And it's a limited term license, generally good for just one day. And it can be used by us at the event, and an organization can get 12 of those a year. So we are contracting with Wildwood Family Farms for the Heritage Day event to assist with serving the beer. They have trained servers, so they will be there, and they will also help us with the prevention of sales to minors, as well as over serving intoxicated persons. The application for the special license permit is attached in your packet tonight for your review and consideration. If the board moves forward with the approval of this permit, we will have to then send it to the King County Sheriff's Department for their review and sign off as well. And then we will send it to the state of Michigan for them to review and hopefully issue the permit for us. So there's a handful of us tonight on the committee, so we can answer any questions you may have.
So this is actually Cascade Township that's establishing and running the beer tent.
That is correct.
Who's carrying the insurance?
Township.
Carry the insurance.
What's the advantage to having this activity? Not the Heritage Day, but the alcohol.
The alcohol, I think the committee was just interested in having a beer tent. It's something that we've heard from residents as well. You know, great to have a festival with a beer tent. There's a band.
I think we're trying to compete with Ada and hopefully have a better party.
I think that in the past, you old timers on here, the old farts, didn't we talk about beer tents before at our activities? It might be 4th of July or something about a township having a beer tent. That subject come up in the past.
I don't remember.
Sue, you're too young. You won't remember.
Thank you.
Tom, or
I don't remember a beer tent on the 4th of July. The committee, Adam, the fire department never recommended that either, I don't think.
Manager Swayze, do you know anything about the fleshing out the insurance question or the liability?
Yep, so we've put in the application. So it is a rider on our insurance, so we'll have to get back the quote and sign the rider. This is really kind of all still a part of, we have to make sure that this makes financial sense for it as well. So we're finalizing the details of the contract, finalizing the details of the insurance, how the beer is purchased, all of that cost. I've charged the committee that I'm a part of to making sure that it's financially feasible as well. So this is part of the process that takes a little bit longer. So we need to get this started anyways. But at some point we'll come back in front of the board with basically an outline budget that shows, yep, we're not going to lose money selling beer at an event. That's just not good public policy. So, but talking to other communities that have had beer tents, such as Ada Township, they typically, if they're run appropriately and thought through, can provide additional revenue for these types of activities.
So we'll have a chance to review this again coming before the board?
Correct.
Before September?
Yes.
Things do run fast in this township.
Brad Anderson, our de facto planner, who's a teacher at Forest Hill Central, has just been fantastic with planning it and all the different ideas. And also he's in touch with a lot of different vendors, isn't the right word, but the 5K that we're going to have, he's just really independent. And he's picking up a lot of through his network, they're picking up a lot of the costs. So he kind of upped it to a really, hopefully fun event. Normally I don't really get excited about community events, but this one is actually sounding really good.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Support.
That's a motion to approve the resolution for special license permit for Cascade Heritage Day made by Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee McDonald. Is there, I guess, Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Shipley.
Yeah, since we're going to see it again in the future with more detail, yay.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce.
No.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Clerk Slater. Yes. Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 078, 2021, resolution for special license permit for, oh, I'm sorry.
Road closure.
078. Got it. Sorry about that. Resolution for road closures for Cascade Heritage Day 5K and Festival.
Blurry. Oh, yes. All right, so again, part of the Heritage Day Festival on Saturday, September 25, and it does include a 5K run and a fun run that will be operated by Athletic Timers of Michigan, approximately from 8:45-ish in the morning until 11 a.m. And then that festival, the festival events actually begin at noon. So there are road closures required for the run as well as the festival. And so I included both resolutions. They're two separate resolutions, but I did include both of them in this memorandum tonight. So the 5K run actually is proposed to start at the library area right here at Jack Smith in Thornbrook. And it would run down at Thornbrook to Thorn Hills Avenue. Now the portion of the run on Thorn Hills Avenue will actually take place on the pathway, so we don't need to close Thorn Hills between Thornbrook and Thornapple River Drive. They will then travel down Thornapple River Drive to Tassel Park, and then they will come back. So it's an out and back run basically. And so because of that, the road closures for the 5K run include Thornapple River Drive from Thorn Hills to Cascade Road, Jack Smith from 28th Street to Thornbrook, and then Thornbrook from Jack Smith to Thorn Hills, if you can follow all that. So those will be closed from approximately 8:45 a.m. until 11 a.m. The second resolution in the packet is for the actual festival. And that is strictly to close Jack Smith Drive then from 11 a.m. until 9 p.m. at night when the festival is over. So really, Jack Smith will be closed really all day. I just wanted to differentiate between the 5K run and the festival event. So any questions on that? I know it's a little confusing.
Question, Sandra.
Yeah.
First of all, I like your idea of using the pathway instead of the road. As a resident out here, I'd hate to try and find a way to go north or south. On Thornapple River Drive, people that live over on Berger and whatnot, are they going to be able to get out?
So local traffic will be allowed through on Thornapple River Drive. When I talked to the road commission, they would prefer those neighborhoods, you know, off of Berger, Tanglewood, Tuscany. They do have another way out of there. They would prefer they use that other option if possible, but it will be open to local traffic. So nobody can cut through, but just local traffic only. Yep.
Is there a motion or discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
So it's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Clerk Slater, to pass the resolution for road closures for Cascade Heritage Day 5K and Festival.
Treasurer Pierce.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yay.
Slater, yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Item 079, approval of outdoor gathering permit for the Cascade Heritage Day Festival.
So again, this event is open to the public and it will be held at 2864 Thornhills Avenue, which is this parcel kind of across the street here that abuts on Nodos. There will be some inflatables on the property right out here where we have inflatables for 4th of July. So again, it includes a 5K run. There will be a cornhole tournament, kids inflatables, beer tent, band. The library will be having a book sale at the same time. And we will have some food booths there. And so buildings and grounds crew will help us, you know, set things up, set up the stage and so forth. There will be volunteers at the event. And this is, again, as Supervisor Lesbrunz indicated, Brand Anderson, Forest Hills Public School teacher, has been sitting on the committee with us and helping us plan this event for the community. So really it will be held from about 9:30 a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m., although the fun run does start a little earlier. The beer tent will be open from 9:30 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. They wanted to catch those runners after the 5K. If they wanted a beer, they wanted the beer tent open at that time. And then it will be shut down for a few hours and then open back up from 1 to 9 p.m. So in your packet is the event schedule. And I put some information up here on the document cam for that as well. Chief Majors sits on the committee, and so he's very aware of the event, and Deputy Dieppe is as well. The Sheriff Department will be on site to help with traffic control also. We have talked to some Cascade businesses to set up some food booths at the event. And certainly the library does have restroom facilities, but we will have additional porta pots on site, as well as hand washing stations. Signal Point Band will play. I know the township has committed, I believe it's $25,000, correct me if I'm wrong, for the event, but Brad has also been talking to potential sponsors. So, and again, the township insurance policy covers the event. So this is obviously outdoor gathering permit because we anticipate more than 200 people showing up. We really hope more than 200 people show up. So
I have a question. What restaurants?
I'd rather not commit yet because I'm still talking to some of them. So
I just want to know what to look for.
I'll let you know as soon as I have them signed on the dotted line. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a motion or discussion?
Motion to approve.
Support.
The motion by trustee Kessel, supported by trustee McDonald, to approve the outdoor gathering permit for Cascade Heritage Day Festival. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Corhorn.
Thank you.
080-2021. Consider approval of the Cascade Township Support Emergency Operations Plan.
9. Sorry.
Welcome, Chief. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you. Cascade Charter Township Support Emergency Operation Plan is due for updating and formal board adoption. We already operate under the Support Emergency Operations Plan for the 2017 Emergency Action Guide for the county. This is a support for that guide. It enables us when there's a large emergency in Cascade Township where we can stand up our Emergency Operations Center. And then if we need support from the county or state, this is a document that supports that and provides that foundation. We have used it several times in the past. 2018, river flooding with the pandemic. We get storms like we did last night. Those are times we spin up in use. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Anytime that municipal chief executive officer like Supervisor Lesperance gets elected and that changes hands, or anytime the county or state makes any improvements or adjustments or formatting, it is due for review and adoption. And that's where we're at with the 2017 Emergency Action Guide with the county has been updated to the 2022 version. And then with Supervisor Lesperance being new to the board, it came to us for review. So Township Manager and I reviewed it last winter and spring, sent it back to the county and state for proofreading and making sure that all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. It came back and it's good, and now it just needs to be adopted.
Thank you.
So if you have any questions, I can start. It's pretty.
Are you happy with it?
I am.
I know one of the advantages coming up is 800 meg. Do you have that yet?
We are in service with the 800 megahertz. They work fantastic.
I know that's a good advantage statewide.
And they came in handy last night with the storm. They work really well.
Any discussion or a motion?
I make a motion to approve it.
Support.
It's a motion to approve the Cascade Township Support Emergency Operations Plan made by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for coming. 081-2021. Resolution of acknowledgement of filing and presentation of the special assessment roll to the Township Board and notice of special hearing for the Laraway Lake Special Assessment District Number 1. Manager Swayze, you want to tell us what we're voting on?
Great, thank you. So as you're all well aware, we've received a petition from the property owners at Laraway Lake to make improvements on Laraway Lake, including weed control and removal, and for the cost of those improvements to be special assessed against the parcels of land within the district. The request is for the cost to be equally assessed against all parcels that front Laraway Lake, with the exception of vacant parcels owned by duplicate homeowners. So they've requested the special assessment district to be implemented for 10 years. The total parcel count for the district is 23, and the requested work to be done is approximately $11,575 each year, meaning that the assessment would be approximately $504 per year during the duration of the special assessment district. So we are establishing, or we're going through the process to establish a potential special assessment district pursuant to Public Act 188 of the Public Acts of Michigan, 1954. You'll hear me refer to that as Act or Act 188. Should be noted, while the petition had been received from the Laraway Lake property owners, the process is being moved forward on the portion of the act that allows the initiative of the Township Board on its own. And legally, the board's not compelled to carry through the special assessment district if it determines it's not in the best interest of the public. So this special assessment district was originally approved by the Township Board at their February 10th meeting. After that meeting, in consultation with our special legal counsel, we determined that the special assessment roll was not properly certified prior to the roll being approved by the Township Board. So the board did meet with the council, and at that recommendation, at our May 26th Township Board meeting, the Township Board adopted a resolution declaring a defect in the special assessment district proceedings. And that resolution rescinded resolution number 3, which is dated 1/13/21, and resolution number 4, which was dated 2/10/21. That resolution also indicated the intent of the township board to proceed with new resolutions in that process, and the process can be picked up where the defect was identified. Previous in this process, we have held public hearings to hear and consider any objections to the proposed public improvements, the proposed special assessment district, and all other matters relating to the public improvements. After those public hearings, the board did approve a resolution which, among other things, made the determination to proceed with the public improvements and provided the directive to the township supervisor to confer the special assessment role. So in your packet, I included the resolution of acknowledgement and filing and presentation of the role for the Laramie Lake Special Assessment District process, the proposed special assessment role that's been certified by the township supervisor, and the estimated costs and plans for the Laramie Lake improvements. So we have had the special assessment role as well as the resolution and support documentation reviewed and approved by our new township attorney, Michael Homier. They have as they specialize in a lot of stuff, they specialize in special assessment districts as well. So we thought it was appropriate for him to review. And it's always good to have a second set of eyes as well. Since the original process was found to be deficient, it's recommended that the cost of the remaining process be covered by the township instead of the special assessment district. The original direct costs related to the establishment of the district, i.e. the legal services, printing, mailing, and publication, will be charged to the district if it is established. If the district is not established, the township will be responsible for those costs. We are recommending that if the special assessment district is established, the township board approve an ad hoc committee consisting of township elected officials, staff, and residents in the SAD to provide direction on the expenditures of the SAD dollars, though the final appropriation of those dollars are always at the sole discretion of the township board. So if the board approves this resolution tonight, it'll put a couple things in action. So the certified special assessment role will be filed in the office of the township clerk and available for public examination or inspection. It'll set a public hearing at the regularly scheduled township board meeting on September 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And the required notifications will be mailed to residents within the special assessment district and published in the Grand Rapids Press. So one thing of note I wanted to put out there that in consultation with the township attorney, they've indicated that the language in Act 188 is permissive. The township board may raise the SAD amount a total of 10% over the entire life of the SAD, not each individual year. So we wanted to make that clarification. And then in addition, the township board may choose a more stringent measure if they choose. So when resolution number 4 is proposed to the township board, there's going to be optional language in there that the board can consider that it will say it will not raise the special assessment district amount more than the CPI each year, which is the number that's applied to the taxable value of houses as well. So without having, again, you can have a public hearing, and after that public hearing, an additional amount can be assessed. But without the public hearing, if the township board chooses to adopt that language, it would only be eligible to increase the CPI. And of course, the board could choose not to raise it at all. That's always an option. So it's anticipated the final mailing and publication costs for this reboot process will come to approximately $1,300. If established, the special assessment district will produce $11,575 each year. Those funds are kept in a separate fund and only can be utilized for the purpose outlined in the special assessment district process. If for any reason the special assessment district is dissolved by the township board and there's money remaining in there, it will be returned to the residents at the rate that it was received by the residents, which in this case is proportional. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have about the special assessment district.
Treasurer Pierce?
We have a copy of the supervisor's certificate for Thornapple River. We don't have one for Laramie Lake.
So there was a supervisor's certificate included in the packet for both of them. Supervisor Lesperance has provided an updated one for the Thornapple River.
Second question is on the 10% or CPI, is it CPI per year or 10%, whichever is higher? Because the CPI could go over 10%.
So the The 10% is over the life of the special assessment district, so it's not per year.
If
So
you do CPI every year, it accumulates, it could be more than 10.
So if you end up accumulating and it's more than 10%, you would not be able to raise it. Per the statute, you would not be able to raise it anymore without a public hearing.
Thank you.
I had a question too with supervisor certificate that we got today with language on it. Shouldn't that same language be on the Lower Lake Drive one?
My discretion, no.
What would be different about Lower Lake Drive?
Certification is the same. And is this made public? I realize I've given this to you today, Ben, but the qualification, what we have a copy of, is that public so that anyone can see it?
So it would be public. So
right, but I just mean, is it right now? Because I feel like it's kind of last minute, and I don't know.
There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to share it, but there's been no distribution to the public as of yet.
Which is on me. You didn't have time, but thank you for sharing it. So anyways, it's not required. I put it on there because the Thornapple assessment is such a contentious issue on both sides, and I did it for my own clarification.
Okay.
It's not required.
Ben, if I remember right, everybody on Laraway signed a petition saying that they wanted this, with the exception of one property.
There was one individual we heard from that was not in favor of it.
But everybody else was, so that's a big plus.
And again, that person will have the opportunity to speak at the public hearing.
Okay, and he also would have all the rights of the other people on Thornapple that raised concerns.
Yep. So as long as somebody raises their concerns in the public hearing, they have the opportunity to contest a special assessment at the tax rate unit.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify, Manager Swayze, this then is resolution 3 in the process, the new resolution 3, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And Ben, one other question. So really what we're voting on too is a public hearing.
So yeah, this says that you've received the certified roll. So I can transfer it to the clerk. So if any, we'll put it on the website as well. But the way the language is written, it has to be transferred to the clerk's office. So if somebody comes in the office and wants to look at it, it's housed in the clerk's office. You know, we do that as a matter of process, and then it sets the special sets the public hearing. Right.
So the appropriate action would be then, if you want to adopt this, to approve resolution 3. So all right.
That's
I make that motion.
Support.
It's a motion to adopt the resolution as written, made by Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee Shipley. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yay.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce.
Yes.
Clerk Slater. Yes. Supervisor Lesbrunz.
Yes. Motion carried. Item 082-2021, resolution of acknowledgement of filing and presentation of the special assessment roll to the Township Board and notice of special hearing for the Thornapple River Special Assessment District Number 1.
So if it's okay with the board, I'm just going to hit the differences between the two instead of repeating everything again. So again, this one comes from a petition circulated by members of the Cascade Thornapple River Association. The improvements that are listed not only include weed control and removal, but also include debris removal, safety enhancements, and silt control and removal. The request is for the cost to be equally assessed against all parcels that front the Thornapple River between the dam and 60th Street, including those parcels that front township owned property on the river. And again, just the explanation of that is an artifact of the township owning the dam. We own all the land that's under what's referred to as the 666 foot line. It's an elevation line. So there's a lot of areas where the township actually owns deed to 10, 12, 14, in some places a little bit more space. And we have a policy that lets those residents use that land with a few regulations on it. So the special assessment district includes those houses as well. So they've requested for it to be implemented for 15 years. Total parcel count at this point is 301 parcels, $300 a year assessment for a total of $90,300. Everything else about the process is the same. Everything else that is in the resolution is the same. It would set the public hearing also for September 8th, 2021. And as we just talked about, the supervisor while there's a certification in the packet, the supervisor has presented an updated certification as well. Again, would recommend that an ad hoc committee be established to advise on the expenditures of SAD dollars. Final appropriation would be the sole discretion of the township board. A little bit more cost in the reboot efforts for this, just because there's more mailings that need to go out and the newspaper notification is longer. So I'm anticipating about $2,800 in funds for that. And again, happy to answer any questions you may have.
How many signatures did we have on the petition requesting this bill?
So I don't know the number of signatures. So we kind of went by the number of parcels. And I believe it was in the 180s, but I would have to go back, and it's been a while since I've looked at that.
Okay, so roughly 180s. Thank you.
I move to approve the resolution for the Runoff Special Assessment District 1.
Support.
It's a motion to adopt the resolution as stated, made by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Kessel. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Trustee McDonald?
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce?
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook?
Yes.
Trustee Shipley?
Yay.
Trustee Kessel?
Yes.
Clerk Slater? Yes. Supervisor Lesperance?
Yes. Motion carried.
I just think we have to make sure the language in the resolution says it's the CPI each year or 10% cumulatively, whichever is higher.
I agree.
We will have the attorney work on that language so it's vetted out appropriately.
I'll read the qualification briefly, just so because there's a lot of interested residents who live on the river who are affected. It doesn't change the certification or the process. It's just because I think expectations have been all over the place on both sides, very much for it, very much against it. And there's been a lot of, I think, unrealistic expectations about what the certification means or stands for, and the supervisor's role in this process. So it just says the decision of whether or not to ultimately establish the special assessment district lies with the Board of Trustees as a whole after a public hearing and public deliberations. Certification of the role by the supervisor is not intended to allow one board member, e.g. the supervisor, to supersede the Board of Trustees' decision-making authority. I view completion of the certification as both a necessary part of the process and separate from the board's ultimate decision regarding establishment of the special assessment district. And that is to answer those who are strongly opposed to it and are hoping that the supervisor can right a wrong by stopping the process by not signing the certification. And that answers those who are strongly in favor of it, excuse me, who accuse the supervisor of purposely stalling the process by refusing to sign the certification. So we can't make everyone happy, but that's an attempt to at least manage expectations on both sides. Article 10, public comments. Anyone wishing to speak? Virtually or in person?
One of our residents, Mr. Van Salkema, Scott Van Salkema.
Welcome, Mr. Van Salkema.
Let me unmute him first. Whoops. Okay. Mr. Van Salkema, I think we're going to get it together. Hold on. I think we keep unmuting and muting. There we go. Sorry.
All right. Scott Van Salkema, 2570 Orange. A few things. Did the township receive a lot of damage to any of the public parks due to the from the storm last night? I haven't had a chance to go through, so I was just curious.
I haven't received a finalized report, but nothing that raised to the point where they need. I anticipate no, but I don't have a final damage report yet.
All right, well, that's good. No, nothing bad to the structures. You know, I just had a little flicker, which was great down here in the village. My question was regarding the beer tent. which I'm all for it. I like craft beer and everything, but it's just who's going to be serving that? Are the employees from the various breweries in town going to be working? Are any of the people that are going to be serving the alcohol, are they tips trained at all? Just something to consider. That's a program put on by the Liquor Control Commission that lets people know what to look for in regards to over serving or intoxicating the different levels of intoxicants that people have had in their system. So obviously you guys don't want to be over serving people and things of that nature. That was one of my questions. And also, is there going to be any planned maintenance on the paths? I've talked about that earlier in the spring, and here it is almost the end of the summer, and I've continued to ride on the paths and have not really seen anything changed on any of them. So
that's curious. A good question. Why don't we get, and off the top of your head, do you have a response, Manager Swayze, or should we?
I can answer both of those questions.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about it before, but the plan is for the serving to take place through a trained company. They carry the insurance, they carry the training. They do this for other types of events as well. It's called, is it Wildwood?
Wildwood Family Farms.
Wildwood Family Farms. So that answers that question. And yes, the pathway repairs are in process. So we typically do our pathway repairs in that October, November timeframe. So the Parks Committee approved a slate. So we're in the process of getting bids for those improvements. I anticipate in the next couple of meetings, that list of improvements will come to the Township Board for approval. And once those are approved, then the contractor will go to work on those.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. So, okay, that was it. Thank you very much. And again, I do appreciate the Zoom ability here. Can't always make it on time to the meetings, and this is a good way to still be informed and interact. So thank you again.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I would just like to thank Mr. Van Zalkema and everyone else for their patience with me. He was very patient. He had raised his hand and I didn't catch it. And I don't know if that was the internet, both. And then we were in an unmuting war. So he's been very patient. Do any of our other Zoom participants have any public comment? I'm going to wait an even bigger beat this time.
While we're doing that, can I make a suggestion on the Heritage Day? Your tent, that we ask the vendor who's going to do the work to also indemnify us for any actions taken as a result of their performance.
We can look into that.
Yes.
I would hope that they would do that. But that's a good idea.
Sounds like a big liability on their end that they need to have.
It looks like there's no one else who is going to raise their hands at this time. Supervisor Lesperance.
Okay, thank you. Next is Article 11, closed session, and that's being done pursuant to Section 15.268E of the Open Meetings Act, which allows boards to go into closed session to discuss the sale or purchase of real property. Is there a motion?
I move to go into closed session.
Okay, that's a motion by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
To go into closed session. Do we need roll call for? Okay, Clerk Slater.
Trustee Kessel.
Yes.
Trustee Shipley.
Yay.
Trustee Nordhook.
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce.
Yes.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes.
Slater. Yes. Supervisor Lesperance.
Yes, motion carried. We are now in closed session.
Are we gonna leave?
Because of the Zoom.
Yeah.
Recording. I don't think so, because it looks like there's not a lot of interest.
John, I'm better when I'm walking. When I sit for a while, I get stuck.
Oh, I do too. I do too. Watch your step there.
Thank you.
I do find that quite frequently now. Step down or even get out of bed, I brace myself a little bit, just for balance.
Okay, that we can be patient. Yes. You sure? Yes. All right. Megan on it. Let me check over you. Then you'll try and throw it back. Is it, when you looked at it as written in this book, in its packet? I have not gone through.
doing, so I took up Ordinance, and that's it.
Comment, vision. Oh, sure. Let's wrap this up, kids.
Boss, don't forget history. You have to remember history, otherwise you're doomed to repeat it.
You're right. I'm not, yes, you are 100% on board, or correct.
On occasion.
Motion to
Resume
return to
return
open
to
session.
open session.
Okay.
Support.
That's a motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee McDonald to return to open session. Clerk Slater?
Trustee McDonald?
Yes.
Treasurer Pierce?
Yes.
Trustee Nordhook?
Yes.
Trustee Shipley?
Yes.
Trustee Kessel?
Yes.
Clerk Slater?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Supervisor Lesperance? See if you were paying attention.
And Ms. Supervisor, I make a motion to proceed as discussed. In closed session.
Okay.
Support.
So that's a motion by trustee McDonald, supported by trustee Shipley to proceed as discussed in closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Just to correct something I said going into closed session, it was to discuss the purchase or lease of real property, not the sale. Article 12, Manager Swayze, any comments?
Just real quick, I wanted to commend the fire department for all their work last night during the quick and dirty storm. We got about 30 calls in a half hour, and Chief indicated that he was very impressed with the way that our department responded to it. While most of it was babysitting wires and down trees, we did have a tree that fell on a house that sparked a fire. So,
oh, no.
There was real emergency calls, and he was elated with the way they responded. So just wanted to thank them for all of their hard work. And for their hard work, I wanted to promote an event that the Cascade Firefighters Association is holding this weekend. They're doing a charity hockey game over at Patterson Ice Arena. They have several former professional and college hockey players that are going to be coming, and opportunity to see a great game and maybe rub elbows with some former professional athletes. So if you're interested in going, the tickets are $20, and there's a whole host of Cascade firefighters that you can buy tickets from.
Great. Is that what they've been setting up outside of D&W?
I believe so, yes.
Will there be beer available?
So interestingly enough, there won't be beer available.
It's at a hockey rink though.
So since you're going to lead me down this pathway, they have asked, Patterson Ice Arena a couple times has asked to hold events where alcohol will be available. And when their PUD was approved, their PUD specifically says that they're not allowed to sell alcohol. So I imagine at some point in the not too distant future, the Planning Commission will be hearing from them for a potential change to their PUD.
Thank you. Any board comments?
This time I would normally stand up and thank everybody in the audience for being here. However,
Awesome.
we lost everybody. I have.
Thank you both for your help.
Zoom that you can thank.
Thank you everyone for on Zoom for being here. Please give us all your comments, positive and negative. And next time, show up for the meeting if you can.
Article 13, your motion?
Motion made to close, adjourn. Thank you, Jen.
Motion by trustee Shipley, supported by trustee Treasurer Pierce to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
I got time to go home and watch Hogan's Heroes again.
All right.
Heroes.
Oh, there's a flash.
Oh, wait a minute. I used to watch that show every Friday night, John. Which one? Hogan's Heroes.